What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another car review. This is of course the 2018 BMW X6M. Huge thanks to BMW for providing us with this very sweet X6M to review for you guys today.
Also, huge thanks to the Automotive Video Association for arranging this car and 8 others for the first ever AVA Spring event. The event brought 6 of the best car reviewers in video and myself together to film several iconic cars and some of the top luxury SUVs.
So about the X6M, well, here in this bright red color, it certainly stands out for sure. And the X6Ms, I think, have gotten a little leaner in the past. You know, the previous generation was a little more bulky looking, whereas this seems a little more athletic, a little slimmed down, even a little smaller possibly. But up front, you still have the nice signature BMW twin kidney grille up front there that looks good. You have the typical type of headlamps there that also are very good. And of course, this being an M product, you have a very aggressive lower front fascia there that has as large air intakes, and of course a small little X6M badge, and looks very good up front, although it's, you know, not too over the top or anything. It's just the typical stylish BMW styling. Coming down to the sides here though, you have the nice large wheels with very aggressive tires, especially out back there. You got 325 wide tires out back, and it really makes a statement whenever you're looking at this vehicle from behind. But anyway, back to the side here, you see this little X6M badge with a little built-in scoop here in the fender. And also, you know, of course, this being the X6, it has, you know, the sloping rear roof line there. Of course, the X5M is also available with very similar mechanicals and everything if you do want the additional practicality of an actual SUV. It's about the same amount of practicality as a normal sedan would be, you know, with that rear hatch area. But it does give it for a very sporting and athletic stance, again, especially out back there. And then going, you know, to the taillights and things like that, looks very good. You have a very large X6M badge there right on the back. It's, you know, probably 5 times as big as the small one in the front here, and it looks good though nonetheless. You know, you have the typical quad exhaust tips here like you see on other M products. That also looks very good, and overall it's pretty good styling. You know, I mean, it's still typical BMW, you know, nothing too radical, but I think it certainly looks very aggressive and sporty for sure.
Right, for the interior of the X6M, well, it's a pretty cool place to be, and a very typical BMW interior, but still very nice nonetheless. So anyway, first thing, sitting down in these seats, really nice, like almost a light tan interior. It's a really cool color, and I like the shape of the seats too, a very cool shape with the integrated headrests and the little cutouts there in the middle. And yeah, they're just perforated, they're heated and cooled. They have lots of adjustability. You know, you can even adjust the bolstering a little bit here for the torso support, and they're pretty supportive seats. You know, for an M vehicle, I'd say they're about right. You know, not the sportiest of seats, but they do have, you know, pretty nice beefy bolsters here, and so I can't really complain at all. They're pretty cool seats, and like I said, having the heating and cooling function is really nice too. Next, the steering wheel in the X6M, which is your typical awesome M BMW steering wheel. It's a really thick, beefy steering wheel. Has a really nice 9-3 grip, nice little 10-2 notches, just a few buttons on it, just a very slimmed down wheel. It looks very lean and just looks great. You also have these nice long paddle shifters. They're not the longest out there or anything, but, you know, a little bit longer than a lot of the other sporty stuff out there. And you know, they're still mounted to the steering wheel, not the column or anything, but still really nice paddles that have a nice metal backing to them that feel really nice and, you know, cool to the touch. And so overall, it's a really great steering wheel. Next, the gauges here in the X6M, which are your typical BMW gauges. I'm looking forward to their all-new gauge cluster that's coming here. But in the meantime, you have these gauges, which are, you know, pretty much the same as they have been for several years now. They're not bad. You know, your typical 4 dials there. I do like, you know, the little bit of an adjustable red line I think you have there on the tachometer. And then down in the bottom portion there, it is digitized, but, you know, it's not super colorful or anything. It just has a few basic things you can scroll through there. You know, not a whole lot. The right hand side there will show you your different driver settings for the 3 different you know, areas of the vehicle that you're able to customize there with that. You also do have the M1 and M2 buttons on the steering wheel, and those are shortcuts to save the, you know, special My Mode, I guess, settings for you know, those however you want to have it set up so that it remembers them. And so overall, you know, pretty good gauges, but nothing that really wows me either. Coming over to the center of the dashboard though, right up top here you have this nice little you know, Idrive infotainment screen, which is getting a lot better these days. It still is a little more convoluted than it needs to be with its submenus, and I still wish there was a simple tune knob, because just trying to scroll through radio stations can still be a maddening process until you program all your presets in, or, you know, it's more complicated than it needs to be. But other than that, it is really cool. And one cool thing that it has is wireless Apple CarPlay. I don't think you can do Android Auto still yet, yet, unfortunately, and you have to pay extra for Apple CarPlay, but the functionality is worth it because it's Bluetooth wireless. So every time you hop in the car, you instantly have CarPlay. So if this infotainment system drives you crazy sometimes, like it does for me, you just instantly, as soon as you get in the car, you hit the little CarPlay button, and boom, you have your music set up just right there. You have everything nicely laid out. I know, much simpler way to do it. And thankfully, it is touchscreen now, which is huge. It used to be you had to just use this controller, and the controller is still here if you'd like to use that. But really, I mean, the touch is, it's not a far reach for this screen, and it's really nicely set up here with, the CarPlay and everything on there. So I'm really into that. I think the, wireless CarPlay is really handy instead of every other vehicle you have to wire it in, which makes it a little less usable sometimes. Anyway, going back to the regular, iDrive Infotainment, it has a pretty good, maps and things like that. It still has the typical split screen thing, but the sub menus still just don't seem logical to me all the time, regardless of what, mode or whatever, menu you're in within the iDrive here. Just a little more complicated than I would like still, but overall still a very high resolution screen, and overall, like I said, the CarPlay is really cool with the wireless. Coming down to the climate control area here, it's still got your typical orange little, displays like you've had in BMWs for years and years and years. I mean, it works fine, it gets the job done, but doesn't really wow me either, And then you coming down, you see a volume knob, and then a row of 1 through 8 buttons, which again seems a little unnecessary, but they're nonetheless, and you have a slot for the CD drive still, which is appreciated. And then coming back, you have again a good amount of buttons here in this little center area. Several shortcuts around the iDrive controller here. On the left-hand side of the gear shifter, you'll see all the different buttons here to set up the different parts of the vehicle for the driving dynamics, and also a few buttons for cameras and parking and things like that. So not a ton of stuff, but still, I've seen other manufacturers kind of simplify that stuff down a little bit better. But overall, like I said, still not bad. And BMW interiors are still very consistent. They're all very, very similar, and you know what you're going to get. As far as storage space in the X6M, it's not bad. So first off, in the doors here, you have a large map pocket that does have a nice large bottle holder in there, so that's good to see. Coming over to the center here, you'll see your 2 cup holders. You'll see a little ashtray type of space, and also a power outlet / cigarette lighter. Also another USB jack above that. Coming back, you have a little spot for like a key holder or something, and then you have the center armrest, which has a little bit of padding to it. Very nice, expensive feeling leather on it. And anyway, you open that up, it splits in the middle, and then you'll find another USB jack, an auxiliary jack, and a power outlet in there. And you also will see another little area that'll hold your phone, and otherwise you have this nice large cubby that, I mean, it's not as large as some of the other competitors out there, but still should be plenty of space to fit your sunglasses, wallet, phone, all that type of stuff in there pretty easily. Backseat space in the X6M is actually less spacious than I was expecting, so I feel like the previous gen had more room. I'm not sure what it is, but anyway, I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, I maybe have 3 inches of legroom to spare. For a vehicle, the X6, I was thinking it would have just as much space like an X5 would, but it seems like it's a little less to me. Headroom actually is better than I expected, though. I'm 5'9" again, and I still have several inches of headroom to spare there. But if you're a little bit on the taller side, you want to lean your head back. That's where you'll start to find the limitations to the headroom, thanks to this sloping roofline. But otherwise, it's still a good back seat. You have a little fold down center armrest there, and in there you'll find 2 cup holders as well as a little center cubby area. Looking forward in the middle here, you'll see 2 air vents and your own climate controls back there for the rear seat occupants. You'll also find a very deep cubby. I can fit like my entire hand in there, so it's larger than it looks. And then you have 2 traditional power outlets down there as well. So really great to keep everything charged up back there, but you don't have any dedicated USB jacks or anything like that back there, unfortunately. But I gotta say too, also that back seat, you sit really low, lower than you do in any other normal SUV. So you really feel like you're kind of cocooned in this little cockpit almost, and you really feel part of the driving experience in the back there since you're sitting so low. And they're also very soft, comfortable seats as well. So overall, as long as you don't need a ton of space, I think it's a really cool back seat. Trunk space in the X6M is about the same amount of size as you would get, with a 5 Series or something like that. Probably, most stuff will fit in there as long as it's not too tall. Of course, if you do want the actual SUV functionality of an SUV, then I would probably go for the X5M instead, which is just as fast and has a larger hatch there. But if you you like the, you know, racier looks here of the X6, then, you know, it's still plenty of space. You know, you can stack a couple suitcases, I think, without too much of an issue, and overall, still a pretty good amount of space back there. All right, so start and go for a drive. The X6M has this really cool new BMW key, and this one has a little sticker on the back there, but you can see the little BMW badge there, and overall, it's a really cool looking key. So anyway, of course, it's keyless entry and push button start. So just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and roars to life. Alright, so setting off in the 2018 BMW X6M. So, first thing you notice is you are sitting up higher than you would be in a car, but it's not like a super high sitting position like you see in, you know, some type of full-size SUV or anything like that. So it gives it a little bit of a sportier, you know, driving position, I think. And again, you just feel like, you know, the roof's a little lower, so it just feels a little sportier in just about every way. Visibility, though, is still pretty good, you know, so you have a pretty large windshield, a little bit of a thicker A-pillar. That is one thing I can say, but it's not too bad. You're sitting up high enough that you mostly avoid it, although, like I said, the whole mirror area is just kind of a little chunky. View out of the sides is good, though, and view out of the back is actually pretty decent. You know, it's still nice and wide for the view there in the back. You just don't have a lot of height, since, of course, you have a very rigged rear window there, but, you know, about what you would get from any other type of actual two-door coupe. Also, we're in comfort mode right now, and the ride is still definitely a little firmer than I would expect out of a comfort mode, but I think that's, I guess, part of the M sacrifice. But I've just put everything into Sport Plus mode, and let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. Oh man! This thing takes off! Wow! Has the 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8 engine that does 568 horsepower, 553 pound-feet of torque, I believe. 3.8 seconds 0 to 60 here with this. And it feels about that fast. It still is a heavy vehicle. I think it weighs a little over 5,000 pounds. So that certainly will limit how quick it feels. Because, for example, the Audi RS5, that's also quoted at like 3.7, 3.8, and that felt a little quicker than this. But this pulls really hard still, and it puts the power down really well also because, you know, you have 285 wide tires in the front, and then you have 325s in the back, so you know, you shouldn't have any issues with traction, that's for sure. But I put into manual mode here, and let's see how the manual shifting does. Man, nice firm upshifts too, like nice little burp from the exhaust as you're going through the gears as well. But it's pretty quick. I think, I'm not sure exactly. I know it's an 8-speed transmission. I'm not sure if this is ZF. I think it's the ZF 8-speed, but it's quick whatever it is. This 8-speed automatic does just respond very quickly to shifts. Downshifts are just about immediate. Although it seems like the sound doesn't match the tachometer whenever I'm downshifting. But I don't even care. It's quick enough. It's very responsive, plenty for, you know, an SUV, but this is this sounds really good too, this V8. It's a little synthetic sounding, you know, it's not the most guttural sounding V8. It's very smooth and polished for sure, but it does still sound very good. I'm just glad they're sticking with a V8 and, you know, not going to a V6 or something like some of the others. But, you know, those downshifts are nice and snappy. First to second takes a little bit of a minute split second before it upshifts. But otherwise, yeah, this thing, oh man, it's an animal, that's for sure. It's all very sure-footed though. You know, there isn't really any drama. That's the only thing I'm missing. Even with other all-wheel drive stuff, like the RS5 that I just reviewed, that even felt a little more dramatic still, even though there wasn't any kind of wheel spin like you get in some of the, you know, rear-wheel drive sporty offerings. You know, this, it's still just, it's fast, it's very fast, like other BMW products. It's very impressive. it just seems a little too sterilized. I kind of want it to even feel a little crazier. Like, it's fast, and that's what I'm reacting to is the speed and the G-forces, but it's just doing it without breaking a sweat, you know. It's there isn't any kind of struggle or any kind of thing that I really have to do, honestly, other than hang on and enjoy the ride, which is fun for sure. But it's yeah, this thing is impressive though. So now we're going around some corners here, and it's pretty flat for a 5,000-pound SUV. This thing gets around a corner, man, and it really has a lot of grip. It just, you get a little bit of lean for sure, but like I said, I got everything in the Sport Plus mode, so dampers should be at their firmest. Surprisingly, the ride isn't harsh though. I was expecting it to really change, but for some reason it seems like you feel just as much of the road as you do in the comfort mode, at least in my first little impressions here so far. But man, it handles really, really well. I have to say, that's pretty impressive. A lot of other SUVs, it's like, well, you know, it's a big SUV, so it does what it can. But this, there's really no excuses to be made. I mean, no, it's not as flat as an M3. I will certainly say that. It isn't that good, but it does handle very, very well for an SUV. So I'm still firmly in the camp that sedans are better than SUVs, but if for some reason you really want the high ride height, or an M3 just doesn't excite you, you know, this still has a very similar type of experience. I think it's very similar amounts of power. I mean, the M4 has a lot less power than the M3, but it's a similar type of G experience, I think. You know, it's a similar type of intensity. You know, this, it's just a little bit heavier in everything that it does. This obviously, it puts down the power a lot better too, so that's one thing the M3 can't do yet until it goes to all-wheel drive in the future. But in the meantime, being rear-wheel drive, it certainly does you know, struggle for traction, whereas this just puts it down. But I actually think I like that little bit of a struggle. I like the tail happiness of the M3 and M4, and I think that might be a little bit of what I'm missing here in this experience. You know, those felt a little more crazy, I guess, than this does. This feels crazy, but just in a very controlled way. So the M3 and M4 are like madmen, and this is like a hitman. It's very precise, just as brutal, but yeah, it's not quite as wild. Second gear pull this time. Yeah, there's no wheel spin, but it is fun for sure. This thing is fantastic. I really like also, all the driver inputs are so nicely dialed in, like you often find in BMWs. You know, very immediate throttle response, you know, a little bit of a brake travel, but you know, it feels very progressive and natural. And the steering is nice and heavy, especially here with the Sport Plus mode that it's in. Of course, you could lighten that up a little bit if you wanted, but I gotta say, this transmission is really doing a good job with its manual shifting. So much so that, you know, I'm treating it like any other dual clutch, where I just kind of, it's always immediate. It always hangs on to gears for me. It doesn't have a mind of its own. Some of these automatics have a mind of their own, want to upshift at random times or go out of manual mode at some point, whereas this, it stays in manual mode. It stays in whatever gear I tell it to go in. It doesn't try and do things for me. It just follows commands, and I like that. But because, you know, it has so much grip, and it has, you know, so much power and sure-footedness with that all-wheel drive, it really gives you a lot of confidence. You know, and the only thing that I think leaves me a little wanting actually are the brakes. Even though we have these massive brakes here, I mean, they certainly seem to haul you to a stop really quick, but they don't seem quite as impressive as the rest of the experience. But I mean, it still is plenty of braking force. It's just you know, it doesn't grab quite as hard as I would like, I think, for, you know, but again, we're talking about, again, a 5,000-pound vehicle, so that's, I think, part of it. You know, I feel like it could benefit from slightly beefier brakes, but again, if you're tracking one of these things or something, I feel like you'd be better off in an M5 or something like that. But, you know, as a daily driver, I think the brakes are, you know, going to be plenty, and it is still very fun. But as we've caught up to traffic here, we'll go ahead and put it back into the normal drive mode and just kind of cruise a little bit here. And this is where you really get a different note from the engine too. These lower RPMs it does a really good job of relying on its torque to gain speed, so it doesn't have to unnecessarily downshift. And I like that because, you know, it's fine to leave it at the lower RPMs as long as you have enough juice to get up and go. But if you're waiting around for it, that gets annoying. But this, it seems really intelligent with the way everything is set up and programmed for the transmission and everything, and the way these turbos come on. It's very, you know, low RPMs when those turbos kick in, and feels really good. And now just cruising on a highway here. This is where you can tell this is still a little firmer than I would like. I wish they could kind of do the best of both worlds a little more, because I have everything back in the comfort mode now, and I still get a lot of road noise I'm noticing here, and you're also feeling every little bit of the road. So I mean, you know, if you want a really sports car like SUV, then I feel like this definitely translates a lot of that into the cabin like those do. But I feel like there's other, you know, performance SUVs that aren't quite this you know, I guess rough with the ride. Not that the ride is harsh or anything, it's just a lot more communicative than I personally would want whenever I'm just wanting to chill and cruise in comfort mode. Other things though that I've tried out since I've been driving here is the Bang & Olufsen stereo. Has really good bass. It has a really nice you know, powerful sound to it, I guess, and I really like this little tweeter that pops up out of the center here as well. It's a cool little thing. So I mean, otherwise, you know, it's a really good SUV, but again, you also pay a penalty for that performance as far as fuel economy, which is another thing as far as daily drivability goes. You know, these are rated, I think, 14 in the city and 19 on the highway. So, you know, not the greatest fuel economy. Again, for something that's as small as this is too, I mean, that's the type of fuel economy you get from massive SUVs. And so again, that's just one of the things you pay for the performance. Another thing you pay, speaking of the pricing and stuff like that, that's another thing you pay dearly for. These start at $104,000 for the X6M. This one, as tested, is around $120,000. Now this one has a lot of stuff like the infrared, you know, night vision camera. That's, you know, very cool. The 360 camera, and you know, a lot of other things that are bundled into this package. You know, all the different packages you have here in this one. But $120,000. That there's some really impressive SUVs, and I mean, this is definitely up there as, you know, one of the fastest and everything. But you know, personally, I would of course at least go for the X5M to have the actual practicality of an SUV if I'm going to go to an SUV. But other than that, though, I mean, it's just, you know, that buys you a lot. There's a lot of new competitors that are coming out, you know, every day. There's the F-Pace SVR that's coming, that's, you know, going to be well under that pricing wise and have just the same amount of horsepower, honestly. And then there's several other competitors these days. The hot SUV segment is really heating up, and so, you know, 120, it's just a little hard to justify for me, even at 104. But I know BMWs are getting expensive, and you know, M5s go for that same price as well. But yeah, it's very cool. I just, you know, I think the M5 has more tricks up its sleeve with the ability to, you know, adjust from rear-wheel drive to all-wheel drive and all that type of stuff. I haven't driven the new M5 yet, unfortunately, but I'm hoping to one of these days. But you know, this is still very awesome and very fun. But I think, you know, there are more fun options for this pricing even within BMW, I think. But this one is still certainly very cool. And if you want, you know, the standout styling and the higher ride height of an SUV, I think this is still definitely a car that would be worth owning. It's still very, very fun. And so anyway, huge thanks once again to BMW for providing me with this X6M to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts about the X6M in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.